Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to today's session. We'll be talking about texting and email under HIPAA. I know a lot of you think, oh boy, that sounds like a lot of fun. We'll talk about HIPAA. Regulations, it can be dry and boring and things like that. Well, I'll try and make it as interesting as I can along the way. And what can you do? It is still regulations. But at the same time, there's a lot of issues that we have to touch on, a lot of things that are of concern and things you want to be sure you're doing the right way so you don't wind up in trouble. You don't want to wind up in the crosshairs of some kind of enforcement action or something like that. So you want to make sure you handle this appropriately. It is a hot topic area of great concern for our friends at the Department of Health and Human Services. So let me just get there we go. Okay, so oops, see if I can get this to show up properly here. Sometimes PowerPoint has a fun, I don't know why it's making this look funny here. For some reason, it's not displaying my agenda slide very clearly, but anyway. What we'll be looking at is we'll be discussing the rights for electronic copies of electronic records and show the process that must be used in the event of some kind of a breach. So, what's involved with electronic records, what's involved with making sure you're doing the right thing in your providing of access to information. I do apologize for how this slide is displaying here. It's one of those Microsoft PowerPoint things that sometimes it decides not to show the slides the way you're expecting. But anyway, so we'll be looking at what's involved with getting access and what needs to be involved if there's something goes wrong. Part of it is making sure you're prepared for things like enforcement and auditing because sometimes those things become a reality that you have to deal with, and so the important thing is to make sure you're prepared for these kinds of things. It's really all about making sure you're prepared to be in compliance. And how do you think about compliance? And how do you approach compliance so that you can cover all the details you really need to? But anyway, we'll be covering the material. We'll say never mind the agenda slide. But anyway, the next slide looks okay. Of course, that's the one all about me. So that one would have to turn out right, I guess, right? Anyway, the important thing on this slide is there's not much of the details because there's plenty of that nice stuff spoken about me at the beginning. But the important thing is I use an engineer's viewpoint, not a lawyer's viewpoint. What I do is I look at complicated things and figure out how to simplify them, how to understand them, and how to put the pieces together, and which kind of works well whether you're building a bridge or whether you're dealing with something like healthcare regulatory compliance. So that's what I specialize in these days. It's been HIPAA almost entirely for the last 18 years, and if it hasn't been HIPAA, it's been things related to HIPAA. So anyway, I've been focusing on the HIPAA world for a whole lot of time. The important thing for you is at the lewiscreeksystems.com website, at lewiscreeksystems.com, there are plenty of tools available to you for compliance purposes. So here's the thing: whenever I get access to a lot of newsletters and sources of information and things like that, and whenever I come upon something that looks like it would be useful for me in the future, in the world of healthcare information, privacy and security, regulatory compliance, if it looks like it'd be useful for me in the future, I figure it's probably useful for somebody else. But the important thing for me is I put it out on my own website so that I can find it easily, no matter where I am. I don't have to log in anywhere, have my own computer, or look at my own list of bookmarks. I don't use lists of bookmarks. I think they're an abomination the way they get misused and get out of hand. So anyway, so I avoid bookmarks, and I keep all the important stuff out on my website so that I can find it, and so can you. So take advantage of that and check in there on a regular basis. You don't have to register or give me your email address or anything like that, but you can if you want to get on my mailing list for my occasional newsletters, which I hate to think how overdue I am for doing one of those. It's been such a busy world these days recently, I hardly know where to begin. But anyway, what we're talking about today is HIPAA privacy and security rules, because that's really what this is all about. We're talking about communications and patient communications. So you have to consider meeting the patient's needs and also making sure that you do your best to secure things as best you can. That's basically what privacy and security is all about. The privacy rule has been around since 2003. It's basically it establishes the framework of the relationship between individuals and the organizations that are holding on to their health information. Okay, so it says what are the individual's rights? What can they do for asking for copies of their information, for instance? Well, there we go. That's the topic we're talking about today. Asking for copies or asking for changes in their information if they think it's incorrect for some reason, or asking for restrictions of certain disclosures, all kinds of various rights that individuals have. And as well, there's various requirements on the organizations as to how they're allowed to use or disclose the information for their own purposes. And so the thing about the privacy rule is there's a lot of aspects to it. It covers a lot of bases, but access of health information has been a big issue for Health and Human Services for quite some time now recently, because they see this as the kind of thing that, if people have better access to their health information for their own purposes, so they can review it themselves and understand it themselves, and so they can properly share the right stuff with their other providers and things like that. If people have the right access to their health information, we can improve the nation's health. It is a national health improvement kind of a thing. This is a key thing for making everybody feel better, is to provide for better access to health information. So they see this is a key right, and it's kind of interesting to see right now. There is a firm that is in the business of providing medical records. They handle medical records requests for hospitals and organizations like that, and they sort of act as a medical records copying clearinghouse. These kinds of organizations. One of them is actually suing Health and Human Services, saying, "Oh, well, gee, this is so complicated following all the rules that you put out for us, and it really upends the way we do our business based on what you're saying we can charge for copies of our records and things like that." And while I have to say they probably have an uphill road, even if they have a case, because right now, regardless of the fact that it might be inconvenient for the medical records industry, this is something that has to be a better job